my boss would Slack me at like 5 o'clock and say like, do you have 5 minutes real quick to hop on a meeting and chat about something? I'd be like, I'm with my kids.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's important. And so I'd be like, okay. And so I'd hop on a Zoom call because I'm trying to prove that I can still do my job, because if I didn't have kids, that wouldn't be a problem, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't have kids, I'd be like, yeah, 5 o'clock, sure.
Welcome everyone to Look Both Ways, where we explore real stories of women who have built remarkable careers all while raising children. I'm your host, Jenna Randolph, and today I'm joined by Alexa Starks, an award-winning workplace culture innovator and the founder of Executive Moms, a company helping organizations and individuals reimagine what it means to thrive at the intersection of work and motherhood. In this conversation, we'll explore Alexa's journey from corporate leadership to founding a movement, her family's recent move from Dallas to the Netherlands, and the tools she's built to help working parents everywhere, including a free self-advocacy script and listener discount for her reentry blueprint workshop. This episode blends story and strategy because Alexa isn't just changing her own path, she's rewriting the future of working motherhood. Welcome, Alexa.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenna. I mean, you said that so beautifully. I feel motivated by my own self.
It's impressive. You're very impressive.
Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I mean, that feels so loaded. I feel like I'm in a therapy session. I love that. Let me start at the beginning. So I grew up in Northern California and in the Bay Area. And I have three brothers. I have a twin brother and a younger brother. And grew up in the Bay Area playing very competitive soccer. I almost like told you my entire life story there for a moment about like high school and trauma. But
can I just interrupt you to say I grew up in Northern California playing competitive soccer? Did we talk about this?
No.
What? I wonder. I mean, I feel like I might be a smidge older than you, but I'm already resonating with your story. So, yep. And trauma, big trauma that ended up with me quitting and not playing college soccer, but that's...
I quit too. I was on the path, like I could have gone pro. My dream was to be pro. And then I ended up getting like really bad depression in high school, went down the path of like partying and stuff, and then ended up quitting. And yeah, it's one of my only real regrets in life.
Same. Oh my goodness. Okay. I didn't know we had this parallel. Mine was more coaching trauma. There was some club coaches and high school coaches and the teenagers, myself included, that got in the mix of it. But one of my biggest regrets was not playing college soccer because I was good and that would have been a great time. So, okay, we're just going to have that therapy moment. What city, where in the Bay Area did you grow up?
I grew up in like Pleasant Hill, Lafayette area in the East Bay.
Got it. Okay, your soccer teams are still very strong, I can tell you, because my kid plays tournaments up there. I grew up in South San Jose, so we probably met at like the Gilroy Soccer Complex and had Pleasanton tournaments. That one is still off the charts hot in the summer.
The one over in Davis, there was a big soccer tournament out by Davis, and I remember we used to go to there's a place called like the Golden Nugget or the Nugget or something like that. It was just some like grocery store with food that we loved in between tournaments. And
oh my gosh,
you'd have like the 3 games on Saturday, 2 games Sunday. If you got to the championship, you'd have a third game. And it's just like brutal. It's like who can run the slowest, but the faster than the slowest person.
In the heat.
So exhausted. Yeah.
In the heat. Yeah. It's still happening because I can tell you my 14-year-old goes to tournaments up there, and it's probably crazier than it was when we were competing in that age group. There are so many clubs, and these clubs have competitive teams like there are 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds that are on traveling club teams that are just the tiniest little humans doing very miraculous things. And every time I pass by, I just hold my breath for their ACLs and MCLs because I just, that's an issue that hopefully someone untangles sometime soon.
Yes. Ugh, I miss those days.
Okay, so athlete. You grew up an athlete
Yes.
in a
Urban
similar place
athlete.
I did, which is fun.
Yeah.
What were your parents like? Did they work? What was your kind of household dynamic?
Um, my dad worked, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom until my parents got divorced when I was about 7, and
Okay.
then my mom got a job. Um, and my brothers played competitive ice hockey, and so we were always it was like school, and then someone had practice in the afternoon, evening, and we'd stop at like Subway or Burger King on the way home, come back, do homework, go to bed, and that was like
Yeah.
every day of the week. And then weekends, it was like someone has a game, go to this because you had to be there, an hour early for warm ups. And so it was like, okay, you go to this game, you go to that game, I'll go to this game. And then it was like tag teaming which parent could watch one of the games and at some point. So it was very busy all the time, which
Yeah.
was great. Um, and I liked that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm one of those people that's like, I don't ever need to go back. Like, I don't want to live in the same town I lived in. And part of that is, I didn't enjoy like high school as much. And it's just sometimes not as fun reliving not fun times. And I love traveling and living abroad. And like when I went to college, that was the first thing I was like, I'm gone. I don't need to go back to a small town. And so I went to college in LA,
Okay.
um, and loved it until I didn't.
Yeah.
So that's next in the journey is went to college in LA at a small liberal arts college out in Whittier, which is like, I don't know, the equivalent of, I guess, the Bay Area to like San Francisco, kind of,
Right.
for
Right.
LA. And yeah, it was fun. I was a marketing major and was having a grand old time until my younger brother committed suicide when I was a junior in college, and he was a year younger than I was.
Wow.
And so that kind of derailed things a little bit and was really hard to get through. So, yeah, but I did and graduated and then moved out to the West Side and got a job in advertising and then spent a decade career in advertising and operations and then got sick of LA
Yeah.
because I wasn't a big like partier, I would say. And LA is very much a be seen and you got your brunches and parties and that wasn't my thing. And so I was like, I want to move. So I picked a place. My company had an office in Dallas, and that was it's like January of 2018. No, 2017 or 2018, I think. Um, and I was like, okay, I'd never been to Texas, never been to Dallas, didn't know anybody there. Picked a place, picked an apartment, signed a rental agreement without looking, and moved. So just whatever could fit in my little Jetta and drove across the country by myself and um,
Oh my
started a
goodness.
little life there. Yeah.
That's brave of you. I'm sorry to hear about your brother. So you pack everything you own into your Jetta and you
Yes.
and you point east and you
Yeah.
head over a few states to the great state of Texas from
Yes.
a very different California. What was that transition like?
It was fun. I mean, everyone was very friendly, and Dallas was, I mean, where I was pretty city, and so it was fun being able to walk to certain places, check out some bars and restaurants, and meet new people. And yeah, I really liked it. It was it was nice being in a very different area and learning about myself in a new place and building my strength. I feel like when you do something like that, when you move, when you pack up and move by yourself to a whole new place you've never been, you build this strength and resilience of like, oh, I can kind of get through a lot of stuff
Yeah.
on my own. I'm pretty strong, stronger than I think I thought I was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I moved to Dallas, loved it, and eventually met my husband shortly after that.
In Dallas.
Yes, in Dallas. We actually lived about half a mile from each other, without even knowing. We actually went to the same gym, and he says that he saw me working out a few times, and I was like just spacing off into the distance,
Sure.
not noticing him at all. But yeah, we met on Bumble right when COVID hit and everything shut down, in April of 2020. And we met, and it was an instant connection. And we always talk about, it was literally love at first sight. And it was very cheesy and very corny. And we never spent a day apart for a very long time. But yeah, now we have 2 kids and decided to pack up and leave the US and move to the
Wow.
Netherlands.
So you stayed in Texas together for a number of years on the same career trajectory, or you were doing operations agency side?
Yeah, advertising operations. And that was sort of my career and what I liked. And I had my entire career like mapped out. I was gonna, work up my way to SVP and C-suite, and I was very driven. I went and got a master's degree in organizational leadership, and I even wrote a book about it. It's like seems so long ago, but yeah, like I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I liked the stability of a job, and I was good at what I did.
Yeah. And the culture of advertising agencies too is really neat, right? Young, vibrant, creative energy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
okay. So how old were you when you got pregnant?
29?
Okay.
No, sorry. I got pregnant. He was born in 2023. Yeah, I guess I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had another one within a couple of years.
I got pregnant 6 months postpartum. So
Oh,
within
goodness.
they're 15 months apart. So 6 months later, got pregnant with my daughter, with my second.
Wow.
But we did it intentionally. It was intentional.
Yeah. Band-Aid
Forced.
method.
Yes, Band-Aid method, right?
Yeah.
Like we wanted to just get both diaper phases over at the same time, both toddler phases at the same time. We really wanted them to be best friends and play with each other and have that closeness. And it's really, really sweet seeing that blossom now that my daughter is 1.5 and she's starting to say words and she's running around chasing her brother, and like it's really sweet, and it's like, yay, this is why we did all this hard work, or I did all this hard work making 2 babies in 2 years.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's
That's brave.
very
I did the opposite. Mine are 5 years apart intentionally because I was like, how in the world would I do 2 under 2? It's brave and also smart of you to just get through that. The newborn phase is the most challenging time, right? We can say objectively.
yeah. I mean, it has its pros and cons for sure. And I think, when my daughter was born, my second, my son was, only 15 months old, and that's still a baby. And so I missed out on a lot of time with him. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I miss him. And it was very hard because I'd be contact nap trapped or breastfeeding, or, my daughter was really fussy and had reflux. And so I'd be like rocking her, and I couldn't hang out and spend time with my son. And so my husband did the vast majority of playing and taking care of my son at the time, which was great. But that was really hard for a while, until my daughter was a little bit older. But it definitely has its pros and cons for sure. I mean, I feel like looking back, it was the right move for me because now I'm getting to a point where, my business is growing and doing well, and I got my body back. I'm strong at the gym, and it'd be really hard now to like go back
Yeah.
and do it all again. And, my kids sleep through the night, so I sleep through the night.
Yeah.
It would kind of be really hard to go back. But every now and then I'll be scrolling through Instagram and see some really cute baby pictures. And I look at my husband and I'm like, we should have a third, right? We should have another baby. And he's like, no, definitely not. So every now and then, though, there's that thought of like, we should have a baby.
Yeah.
We should.
I feel like I'd be more pro if I didn't have to do the growing of the
Yeah.
said baby. But
Hmm.
how were your workplaces with the pregnancies and leaves? Did you have supportive workplaces?
So with the pregnancy, so I worked remotely. And so it
Okay.
was great that I was able to work remotely because if I needed to lay down on the couch because I was tired, I could. If I needed to, when I was very, very pregnant, it was uncomfortable to sit for a while, so I could pace and walk around and use the bathroom every hour and,
Yeah.
lay horizontally on the couch while I work. And so working remotely was great, but my first boss for my first maternity leave was a guy, and so it was the when I came back from maternity leave, it was just like there was no plan. It was just like he didn't say anything, just like you're fine, you're good on your own, you don't need anything. And while I appreciated autonomy and independence before, I didn't know what other support could even have been offered. And then with my second, again, there was no plan, but I she had really bad reflux. And so she was throwing up like 6, 7 times a day until she was 6 months old.
Whew.
And so it was really rough. We went and got her ultrasounds at the hospital to make sure there was nothing wrong. They did tests to see if it was like other issues. And so it was a lot of like, I'd be crying. She was crying all day. I'd be covered in throw up from like here down on Zoom meetings. And it was very hard. And I struggled a lot, but I didn't know how to speak up for myself. And my manager at that time, she wasn't a mom,
Yeah.
or she isn't. And so she also did the same of like, I'm not going to say anything and just you'll figure out yourself and your situation kind of a thing. And I visibly would be struggling. And so that was really hard for me. And then I ended up getting like kind of pushed out and sidelined for further work and promotions. And it became very clear that, like, okay, I can't stay here long term. And I started talking to more moms and realized that this is very common, that there's no support in the workplace. Even what sounds great, like a remote job where you can have your baby home, isn't enough. You need like a manager who's supportive, where if you are struggling, they know how to say, hey, let's like let's get you what you need. Do we need to
Yeah.
readjust your workload when you get back? Or even just like that really first part when you get back from maternity leave. Like I had nothing. There was no plan. It was just you're back at work on day one and it's like, you're good, right? You're back. Everything's cool. You can move on with your job and do it like you did before. And so I was like, I don't think I want to find another job. I think I want to fix this problem.
Yeah.
And so that's why I ended up starting my company, uh, to really help moms advocate for themselves and help workplaces figure out how they can actually support new moms. And because in my mind, it's easy. A lot of it is just language and understanding how you can actually support and help. And yeah, policies are great, but there's only so much you can change for policies.
Yeah. So tell us about Executive Moms and tell us about the breadth of services that you offer and how are you addressing this, I think, well documented but not very talked about problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Executive Moms, and I do two things. One is corporate workshops that train managers and HR on how to actually support new moms returning from maternity leave. And so it's a very hands-on interactive workshop all about like what language helps versus what language doesn't help. Real examples of reentry scenarios where a mom, at 4 months old, your baby starts having a sleep regression, or some teeth start coming in and you're not sleeping at all, and suddenly you still have to work. And so, how can you talk to your employee about, recognizing what this looks like and like, let's adjust your workload for this week or next week, and kind of reprioritize. And so it's a very hands-on workshop about how managers can help. And then I do work with their HR teams about, are there any policies that they could implement that are easy wins? like flexible work when needed so that someone could work from home. If their baby's sick, they can stay home and work remotely if they don't have that yet. Or making sure there's like asynchronous tools like Monday.com or Asana or ClickUp so that a working mom parent isn't penalized for not necessarily working strictly 9 to 5 if they're now working, early in the morning, later in the evening after the kids go to sleep. And so that's the workshop. And then I also help the new moms. So expecting moms, new moms, I have the reentry blueprint system for moms, which is a really phenomenal 3-part like workbook system, PDFs about how you can plan for your maternity leave, plan for the return to work, and how you can advocate for yourself and what you need. So whether that's like setting boundaries when you go back to work about like, hey, I'm picking up my kids from daycare at 4:30. Don't schedule meetings. I'm not taking calls during that time. Don't bother me. um, you know, things like that, or how to ask for flexibility of, hey, I need to work remotely when my kid's sick, right? And so 'cause that was part of my biggest struggle was not knowing how to advocate for myself. And when I went back to work at 3 months postpartum, I didn't know what to say. Like I had no idea. And that's why that part of it, the third part of this system is so helpful because I just give you the language that you don't have to guess or try to figure out what to say. You just, see like, okay, here's how I ask for flexibility. Here's how I can set boundaries. Here's how I can reset my workload for this week because it's too much and I can say I'm overwhelmed and ask for help. So that is for new moms, expecting moms to kind of plan their maternity leave because you can plan your maternity leave. I had no plan. It was just like, I'm in labor, gone.
Yeah.
That's it. But you can totally plan it. Some women want like a weekly update or a monthly update, if only updates if something big happened or changed or reorgs. And some women are like, don't talk to me for 3 months or whatever it is, 8 weeks, 16 weeks. And so it's very different. But if you can have those conversations with your manager first, and you can have that conversation about what your return looks like so that you could plan for that part of it a little bit. Like if you want a phased return, if you want hybrid or remote for the first month of your work when you get back, or if you want to work part-time 2 or 3 days a week when you first get back. Like there's options, but you don't know that there's options unless you know that beforehand.
Yeah. What an incredible resource. And Alexa is offering Look Both Ways listeners 15% off the Reentry Blueprint workshop. We'll put a link in the show notes and use the code Look Both Ways. I'm super excited that she's offering that for everybody. That's support I wish I would have had, especially for my first kid. I came back. The CEO was a hot mess. He had given my office away. I had no place to pump that had a lock on the door. Like I could go on and on. Second pregnancy, I worked for Publicis. Shout out to Publicis, French owned. My leave was like nearly covered for 4 or 5 months. There's a moms group called Viva Mama that was so supportive. And it was, imperfect, but trying. And there were local, local groups of moms. So one of the other moms in our building had made this beautiful room to pump. So either way, what you're doing would have helped me because even with the most resource situation, there were still gaps in my ability. My manager was not a mom. My manager valued somebody who showed up at 7:30 and left at 6 p.m. and I couldn't do that anymore. And I think that those tools, regardless of how supportive the workplace was at the time, would have just been so invaluable.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about now there is the Pump Act. So legally, places have to provide a safe place for you to pump. But even with that, there's still judgment of when you have to go and pump, right? Which is frequently if you're back at work and you have to pump every 3 hours or so and you have to block your calendar for, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's judgment of like, I can't work during this time. I need to go pump for 20, 30 minutes. Don't try to like stand outside the pump room and have a conversation with me or, like try to send emails from your phone while you're pumping. It's like, just how do you say that? How do you tell your boss who doesn't have kids of like, this is what this time is for?
Yeah.
Sorry, like legally I'm protected by it too.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I did work through pumping through the first one. I'd set up at a computer and I'd do my thing. And for the second one, all the moms would be pumping at the same time. And so we would treat it like our little happy hour.
I
And
love that.
it was such an interesting way to connect with other women that were in the same life phases. There would be three, four of us in the same little cozy space, sharing a very intimate moment, but also everybody in the room being just a high power driven, ambitious woman. It's like we just did what we had to do. But those resources, I was lucky enough to have that community that helped each other. Like one of the moms had made a spreadsheet. Okay, California leave is this, federal leave is this, the company, and we had to self-advocate and build what we needed. And that was really only going to impact the company I worked for. Nothing like you're doing at scale to help moms in so many different situations that a lot of the women I've talked to through this podcast have planned meticulously. As you can imagine, I'm talking to a lot of ambitious, driven women. These women have planned everything through their pregnancy, birth plan, and the return to work component has thrown many people completely sideways, honestly.
Really. The most overlooked or unprepared for season. And I was the same way. I planned my pregnancy. Did so much research. I planned the labor. I planned the birth. I had like a birth plan and templates. And, I trained my husband to be my doula. Like I had everything. And then for, postpartum, I had done a breastfeeding course. I prepped everything and bought everything. But the return to work phase, so many of us, because we've so normalized that the return to work phase is a struggle and everyone struggles and it's hard for everyone, we've just accepted it and not even bothered to think, is there a better way to set myself up for success? Because how you go back to work and when you're struggling there, that shows up in your home. That shows up with your exhaustion and burnout and how you take care of your baby and yourself and your family at home. And so it's just we don't talk about it enough because it's fairly new, this concept that like you can actually plan your maternity leave and the return to work experience. So
I felt like people at work who didn't have children were waiting for me to fail. Did that right? It was like I was coming as a broken self back to work, trying my damnedest to succeed. And I felt like those that didn't have children were waiting to see and exploit any crack. And maybe it was just, the competitive environments that I was in, but I felt like I was being set up to fail in a way. And almost, you learn so many great things as an athlete, but having that underdog mentality in my repertoire, I would show up and try and prove a point. But I felt like if I failed, it would be expected. And I wasn't going to elevate on the same trajectory that I was prior to. I don't know. Did you feel like that at all? That people were waiting to see what version of yourself you were going to bring?
Yeah. This is part of my issue with my manager is so I did eventually set like blocks on my calendar when I had both my kids of like, I'm picking up my kids at 4:30 from daycare. I'm done for the day, right? So I'd block 4:30 till like 7 with my kids. If I needed to do anything to wrap up work later, I could after they went to bed. But my boss would slack me at like 5 o'clock and say like, do you have 5 minutes real quick to hop on a meeting and chat about something? I'd be like, I'm with my kids. Yeah. I'd be like, it's important. And so I'd be like, okay. And so I'd hop on a Zoom call because I'm trying to prove that I can still do my job. Because if I didn't have kids, that wouldn't be a problem, right? Yeah. If I didn't have kids, I'd be like, yeah, 5 o'clock, sure. I can hop on a meeting. This is important, of course. But because I was like with my kids, now I had my baby who I was trying to feed or hold in one arm. My son was we're trying to feed him dinner. And it'd be this hectic call. And she's like trying to talk to me about something. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll get to it after I put the kids down or tomorrow. And it's this, now I'm trying to prove
Yeah.
that I can still do my job. And it's she could sense that, she knew that. And it's because moms struggle so much when they go back to work and juggling mom life and home life, that again, we've been conditioned to accept that this is normal. Moms struggle when they go back to work. It's hard. And so people expect it. They wait for it. They look for it. They're like, "Oh, she's exhausted today because her kid's tired. That's going to happen," and
Right.
they just assume it's going to happen because it does, but it's oh god. Go on about it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I felt in the transition between workplace pre-kids and workplace post-kids is pre-kids, my days were not as efficient as they could have been. Let's just say, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd cruise in, I'd still be there for a long period of time, but I'm at the water cooler. I might go for a walk at lunch with a coworker. I could stay later. I might order dinner in, right, and finish my work. I felt like day one coming back after maternity leave, I was the most efficient human being on the freaking planet, right? Yeah. Every single day, because I had to either drop the kid off at daycare or pick her up at the end of the day. There was no room to dilly-dally.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt like the version of myself I was packing into the hours I could was so much better and so much more effective than it was before I had those time constraints. That those moments like you're talking about, Alexa, where you're juggling your kids and the boss calls and you're right at the center of that friction point between, am I a mom? Am I an employee? Am I both? Oh my gosh, they're screaming at me. Like, what is actually happening? Felt so unjustified because I was killing it during the day in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, only to get sideswept by those moments of reflection of like, they almost feel like tests, really. Like, can you stay late on Halloween to transfer files to a client? It's like, you want me to do that?
It's very hard to sort of accept, when you go from a very hard, ambitious, career-driven woman, and then you come back newly postpartum. At first, maybe it's so hard to adjust to that work life and mom life.
Yeah.
But you do have so much more efficiency and productivity. I mean, just from when my daughter would nap or my son would nap, I would get stuff done in that quick hour nap or hour and a half nap because you have to.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're also trying to take on more work to prove yourself, to prove that you can still show up and be a phenomenal employee and the same as you were before. And so I would try to take on more projects and more work and be like, I'm going to do some R&D about like what could make my team's efficiency even more, like even better, and all this stuff, more than what I was even doing pre-kids.
Yeah.
And so you end up trying to do more with less time, and you're killing it and crushing it. And yeah, so the judgment is so unjustified.
Yeah.
Because when you do actually look at it, sure, it may look like, from I'm leaving early for the day. But if you don't have a way to track that, oh, actually I did all these things, and look, I actually worked from 7 till 9:30 to catch up on work because I've added so much to my plate to try to prove I can still hang, and I'm up at 6 a.m. to work for an hour before my baby gets up. If you don't have a way to track that and show that, then it just looks like you're slacking as a new mom. It looks like you're leaving early and your kid's sick, so you're taking another day off or not working parts of the day, but that's not true. And so that's why I'm such a big advocate for using these async tools to track what you're doing so that your manager can see all of what you're doing and see the same productivity and the same output, and that helps to alleviate some of that judgment.
Yeah. That's such a wise thing to think about, because you pull out this different superhuman aspect of yourself because you have to. Mm-hmm. And the contrast of employees that are just hanging out, talking shit in conference rooms for hours on end versus the productivity that the working moms have to have, or there's
Hmm.
not enough hours in the day to not be productive, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that you have created tools and trainings to help both on the company side and on the employee side because it's just so needed.
I do think there should be that mutual accountability, right? That it shouldn't just be on the moms to come to their, come with the tools and come with the ideas and come with the advocacy scripts. It should also be workplaces that know how to support, where managers know how to say, let me help you. I see
Sure.
that you're having a hard time. Because when you just have one side doing something, it just gets just off balance and it doesn't work as well. Um, so yeah, so I love that mutual accountability.
Such meaningful work. So where in the process, so you have two under two, you're in
Hmm.
Texas, where does the let's move out of the country idea come in?
The election.
Okay.
So we had thought about, I mean, we loved watching House Hunters videos. So my husband and I would watch House Hunters after the kids would go to sleep. We'd eat dinner. And we loved, the idea of living on the beach somewhere in Cancun or something. But we just, it wasn't very serious or anything. And then the election got close and we were like, there's no way Trump's going to win. There's no way. And then the night of the election, I remember going to sleep thinking like, oh, for sure he's not going to win. And then I woke up the next morning and he won the second time. This is the second election.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so we looked at each other and we were like, we need to start figuring out how to get out of here.
Yeah.
And so we started doing a ton of research. And I mean like hundreds of YouTube videos, so much like Reddit and subreddits and just Googling about where's the best place to move with kids. Because there's a lot of places that are great to move if you don't have kids. And we were debating between the Netherlands and like Cancun or Costa Rica, because those places were only 2 hours from us in Dallas. And so, and we're big beach people. We love the beach. And we were like, oh, we could start, like an expat fitness center thing and be little fitness beach people. And we would like live by the beach and have little beachy surfer mom kids. And, but then the more we thought about it and did more research into it, when you live there, like in Tamarindo in Costa Rica or in Cancun, you end up staying like in your bubble. There's a lot of unsafe places outside of the big touristy areas. And so we're like, I don't know that that's the experience we want. And so then we were looking at the Netherlands because it has like the happiest ranked kids in the world with the lowest stress and one of the like best ranked education systems and healthcare systems and work-life balance and just, tons of environmental and socialist policies. And so we started looking into the Netherlands and it really became sort of the place we'd want to move to. And we started looking at more and more videos about it and researching the process. And so, yeah, it took 6 months between the election and the time we moved, April 3rd, to do all the paperwork. And we needed 6 months. And that was still pretty fast to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What has that transition been like for both of you working and then for your kids?
So it was really hard in the beginning, because you get thrown out of your comfort zone and into this very unknown space of like, where do I get groceries? There aren't the
Right.
same groceries. So where do I get groceries? What can I get? Even things at the pharmacy, right? Like, where can I buy shampoo? Here in the Netherlands, they really separate their like CVS Walgreens as its own separate place from the grocery stores. Sure, there's like maybe a few little knickknacks, but if you really want to get some stuff like you would from a CVS, it's at a different store. And so it's not like there's no big Target. There isn't like a one-stop shop. That's harder. There is like something close to it called HEMA, but it's nothing compared to Target. America is just American sized everything, and you get so used to everything like that.
And you're a curly girl. I
Yes.
say because my daughter is also, and I know that requires a completely different suite of products.
Yes. So there's also not always the same one-to-one product here that you have in the US. And so you have to like find what you would use here. And there's not as much robust Amazon stuff that you would get. Like in the US, you could pretty much get anything on
Yeah.
Amazon. And it's usually like same day delivery. Like if you order it in the morning, it'll be like between 3 and 5 p.m. and it would just show up on your doorstep. Here, it's not as much a consumerist society, so there's not as many products on Amazon, and it's also not as fast. So it's sometimes easier to just go to the store and buy something that's close enough to it. But the move itself was really hard because my daughter had never flown before, and my son, he'd only been on a flight when he was like 4 months old. And we drove from Dallas to Houston the morning of the flight. We did like a 3 p.m. flight, 4 p.m., because we wanted an overnight flight. We figured, we bought the kids' flyaway toddler beds that blow up. We bought 4 seats, so everybody had their own seat. We bought them, the row in the middle that had like all 4 seats on a big airplane, and the blow up beds for the kids. And we had to drive 3 hours because we wanted just one flight. We didn't want a connecting flight.
Yeah.
And so we did an overnight flight thinking they would sleep and we could sleep and be ready for the day the next morning. And that didn't work.
Okay.
On the drive down to Houston, we thought that they would be super excited and stay awake for a little longer, but they both fell asleep at like 10 a.m., which is not their nap time.
Yeah.
And so they both slept for like 30 minutes and then were up
Yep.
for the whole rest of the day.
Had that power nap.
And it fucking sucked. Like,
Yeah.
it was so hard. And they were exhausted by the time the flight was boarding at, 3 or 4, whatever that was. And then my son, who I thought would love airplanes because he loves airplanes and would be super psyched and excited, had an epic 2-hour meltdown between the time the flight was boarding and whenever 2 hours later into the flight was. And it was that awful experience where you see in a movie someone's toddler screaming and wailing and flailing, and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. That was us. That was me. And it was awful. And I was like, you want to eat something? Let's blow up your bed. Like, let's get you to sit down. And he had to sit down. And he didn't want to sit for the takeoff. And it was just the nightmare of nightmares. And then he was so tired, too, because they only slept for 30 minutes. My daughter refused to be put down for the entirety of the flight, for the entire 11 hours. And so my son eventually, I downloaded a bunch of videos, his car videos that he loves, his car cartoon videos, onto my phone. And so he watched that for like an hour, finally calmed down, and eventually fell asleep at like, I think it was like 9:30-ish our time, which was way later for him than like the 7:15 that he normally went to bed. So like 9:30, extremely tired, finally fell asleep. And my daughter, who I thought would sleep too, because she wasn't even 1, she was about to turn 1, ended up sleeping for 30 minutes and then pulled an all-nighter the rest of the entire flight. And so we passed back and forth holding her in our arms and not sleeping for the entire, like, whatever 10-hour flight that was. Neither of us slept. It sucked. She didn't sleep.
And was this year, Alexa? This is like this April? Okay.
6 months ago. 7 months ago, whatever that was.
So you find a place to live in the Netherlands.
We did funky logistics. So we sold our house before we moved. We sold everything we owned except for 10 suitcases. It was supposed to be 11 suitcases, and we left one at the airport. So 10 suitcases.
Hopefully nothing important in that one.
It was important. It was the overnight bag. I like packed a suitcase that was like immediate toiletries, immediate clothes, immediate medications and stuff that like just in case we lost a bag, we had like stuff, right? Because I was like, in case we lose all of the checked luggage, here's like the one suitcase we wouldn't forget. And the way we did the drop off was just like we pulled up front. My husband unloaded myself and the kids and the car seats and the strollers and the 11 suitcases, and we then waited while because we rented a car to drive. And so while he then drove the car to the rental car return, had to do the whole rental car return, wait for the shuttle to drive him back. And so that was like 45 minutes. And the kids were just like a mess. And yeah, we ended up losing that suitcase. And so we sold everything. So what we did was we did a short-term stay, a fully furnished short-term stay in The Hague when we first moved here. And we did that intentionally so that we didn't have to buy furniture, and it was better than a hotel. It was cheaper to do than a hotel because we didn't know if we were going to be there for 30 days or 3 months, because the housing market here is pretty crazy if you're renting. And we didn't know where we wanted to live either. And so we intentionally were like, we'd never been to the Netherlands. Or actually, my husband's been to Amsterdam, I think once or twice, but I'd never been. And so we were like, we don't know if we want to live in The Hague or live in a suburb outside Amsterdam or live in a suburb outside Rotterdam. And so we intentionally did a short-term stay in The Hague so that we could be kind of centrally located and spend the first few weeks traveling to look at all these suburbs. And so we had picked out it's called Funda, it's like realtor.com here, and picked out a bunch of houses that we would go and look at. And so we did a short-term stay when we first got here to do all of that. And then we we had it delivered to the location, a pack and play cot or crib for my daughter. And my son, we had transitioned him into a toddler bed like a month before we left, so that they had a twin size bed when we got there at that short-term stay, and he thankfully did pretty fine-ish. And so logistically it was a lot. And it's very hard being in a very uncomfortable new situation where everything's new, you don't speak the language, and you're really in this position of, I guess we'll figure it out as we go, which is not a common experience day to day in the US in your life. And so I think that's the hardest thing that people have to come to grips with if they're thinking about moving is being uncomfortable and knowing that there's going to be a lot that you don't know and you just have to figure out once you get here. And that's hard. So you're not in that situation a lot.
So you've settled in, I assume, after 6 months, 5-6 months. What's life like? How is it different? So many questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend it to anyone. So we found a suburb outside of Amsterdam. It's like 20 minutes east of Amsterdam. It's called Almere, and it's fairly modern. So a lot of Amsterdam is like 200 years old, 300 years old, and we did not like old buildings that everything's broken at some point. And we liked a little more space than in the city, and noise was an issue. We don't like noise. And so we found a suburb, and yeah, we got our kids into daycare. So we drop them off in the morning. We walk them to daycare, or we'll bike them to daycare, which is crazy because I'd never ridden a bike. I mean, I've ridden a bike, but was not a fan, did not even own a bike in the US. You wouldn't catch me ever riding a bike. And now we have like 4 bikes, and our kids both have bikes, and we'll walk them to daycare, pick them up from daycare, walk to the grocery store. There's 5 parks within walking distance of us, and like 10 within a 5-minute drive of us. And everyone's outside when it's sunny or cloudy. If it's not raining, everyone's outside because it rains a lot in the winter and it gets dark early because it's pretty far north as a country.
How many hours of daylight do you get in the winter then?
I mean, it's only November, and so I think it'll get a little bit more dark. Right now, it gets light around 7:30 and dark around 5, which is not that bad. I think it'll get a little more dark, closer to like 8 to like 4, probably. Okay. But yeah, no, we absolutely love it here. Our kids go to daycare 4 days a week. And so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. which is a lot for the Netherlands. Most kids go to daycare 2 or 3 days a week, and then it's normal to work 4 days a week here. And so generally, like the mom will take 1 day a week to watch their kid, dad will take 1 day a week to watch their kid, and then usually the grandparents live nearby and they'll take a third day. And so the kid only goes to daycare twice a week, generally, maybe 3 days if there's no grandparents. And so because we don't have that luxury of a support system, our kids are just home Wednesdays, and it's like a weekend day. We go to the park 14 times a day. We'll go get ice cream. We go get food. We'll hang out, play. But weekends, we're at the park all day. We're outside. We're outdoors. It's such a low stress life. And because my business is still US, I work very adjusted hours. And so I don't have to wake up early to work out. We'll drop the kids off at 8:15, 8:30 at daycare, and then I'll go to the gym and work out for an hour and then come back and get work done. And I'll work till we pick the kids up at like 4:30, and then I won't work until we put them down, and I pick back up work at like 7:30ish. I'll work till 10:30.
Yeah, so you made the schedule work for you. And is your husband working also?
Yes. So he still works for his job as well. So similarly, we'll do very similar schedule. So he probably has a meeting right now upstairs and I'm downstairs, and yeah. And then we are here on the DAFT. So we're starting a business here. So it's an entrepreneurship visa where if you start a business here, that's your way in, as opposed to like having a company sponsor you. And so so we're starting a business here. And so it's very, we both get to work remotely. So it's a really, I wouldn't call it easy, but maybe easy-ish as far as like idealistic, what you want it to look like. And like we don't have to get up early. We don't work 9 to 5. We get to really enjoy it.
So you decided, politics, absolutely. I think there are many people in your same boat, but you reinvented your reality essentially.
Yeah, I would call it that. It really was, how do we give our kids a better future? And I think politics aside, I cannot get behind the school shootings and sending my kids one day to school, having active shooter drills, and the anxiety I would have, wondering if it's our school. In Texas, you could buy a gun at a fucking store, right? Like there's no wait time. You go to a gun show, you can walk out with 1,000 automatic rifles. No one's gonna stop you. And so it's just and the guns, that's not even a problem. Like there's shootings throughout every state. It's not like the South is the only place to have shootings. So that was also one of the biggest factors to move. And so it's just, how could we give our kids a better future, and then also us the better life that we wanted to? Because otherwise, if it was just us, we'd be in Cancun and our kids would go to some private school in Cancun or Costa Rica, and we'd just be beach fitness gym people. But it's been kind of a fairy tale dream. I almost want to think like it's everything you wish, and then you realize it's a lot harder to do, but somehow you do it. And I think that's kind of the underlying story and through line of parenting, and that commonality is like somehow you just do it. Like if it's meaningful, if it's worth it, if it's important to you, you just do it. And it was important for us.
It's such an inspiring journey and story. Do you think you're ever going to come back? I feel like
I have no need to come back. My family's all still there, and it would be a really hard sell to move back. And that's one of the other things is in the Netherlands, if you want there's no dual citizenship. So if you want Dutch citizenship, like full Dutch citizenship, you have to relinquish your US citizenship. And that's pretty big. And so right now, we have a residence permit, permanent visa, right? We renew that with the DAFT. It's 2 years, and then you renew it 3 years, and then it's like every 5 years that you're here, you renew it. But that's not the same as like Dutch citizenship. And so if we wanted that, we would have to give up our U.S. citizenship. So we're kind of at this point. It's too early to really make that call.
Yeah.
But, we started thinking about like, why would we ever move back? Like, what's the point of it? Like, because I think we moved at such a really good time where our kids are so young.
Yeah.
That, like, our daughter was just turning 1 when we moved. And so she's going to be perfectly bilingual. And our son, when we moved, he was like a little over 2. And so he's probably like 60% fluent or bilingual at this point. And at daycare, they only speak Dutch. That's the other part of that. So they immediately start learning the language, and kids' brains like really soak it up quickly when they're that little. And so it was a hard transition for them at first, but now it's like the only thing they know. And so if we were in 5 years from now to be like, let's move back, it's like now we're going to rip them out of school and their friends and life, and to move back for what? So I don't know. At this point, I don't really see a need to go back. And also I have such like I don't know that I'd call it negative or cynical or dark outlook on the US, but it's certainly not going a good direction right now. And I don't know how you reverse it. So,
yeah, we're living it. It's heavy.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how you
heavy.
get out of that and reverse a lot of what's going on. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'd almost, if we for some reason couldn't stay here, I'd almost rather move to like Portugal or Spain or Canada even, somewhere else than the US, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time in history, I'll say. One of the things that I know you're developing is the future of working motherhood, a report for 2026. Do you want to give us any spoilers or trends on what you're seeing so far?
Oh, I mean, so it's all about how the experience is for moms in the workplace, from the return to work experience and maternity leave to do you feel supported after, and in the years of just motherhood and being a working mom. And it is not surprising. Like, the data is not surprising. We know that the older data shows how unsupported women are in the workplace. You and I feel it, and we experienced it. Yeah. And that's essentially what the data is showing. It is interesting to see the difference globally, because it is a global study. And it is interesting to see the difference in the lack of support and the lack of resources, and how much worse U.S. women's experience is compared to like European women's experience is. And I think that's going to be more shocking. It's an overall trend that moms aren't supported enough in the workplace, and the postpartum and new return to work experience, even in Europe, there's more support that could be had. And so I'm super excited for it to come out. I have the survey open until the end of this month, November, and then I'm going to put together the report and have it come out at the end of December.
Awesome.
So that'll be for the coming year.
So we should have working moms come and find your survey.
Yeah.
Where can they find it?
It'll be on my website, executivemoms.co. I'll have it probably featured on my LinkedIn profile. It'll probably be on my Instagram too. But yeah,
Awesome.
It'll be everywhere. I'm really excited about it. And there's been a lot of hype. I've had a few like Forbes writers reach out that they're interested in the data as well. And so I'm very excited. It's going to be really cool, because a lot of the data that's out right now is pretty old, or it's a few years old, and it's either not global, or it's just more about motherhood and not as much focus on like the working mom part of it, right, and the workplace part of it, which is very important.
Right. It's interesting because as I started this podcast, I've been put in touch with people like yourself that are also doing work at this intersection. And I think we all felt it when we were in it and new moms, that there's just such a lack of support and conversation and structure and anything at that intersection, that I'm interested to see what the report says and also just to follow your journey, because I think the work you're doing is really impactful and really incredible and hopefully helps moms to come be better supported and have, much smoother journeys than we had. I've ended each podcast episode with the same question.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to describe your journey in 3 words, what would those words be?
Let's go with change, strength, and love. And can I give an explanation for all 3?
100%, please.
Okay. So change, because a lot of the journey has been about change, right? Like leaving my hometown to move to LA by myself, to move to Dallas by myself, to move to the Netherlands with my family. That's all been change and new situations. And I think that grows strength, that creates the environment for you to build strength and build who you are and build resilience and perseverance. And then as a mom, you build this incredible strength in who you are and to raise your babies and take care of them. And I would go to the ends of this earth to protect and defend my children. But I will also let them fall off the chair that I told them not to stand on 14 times. But strength, and then love. I mean, I have so much love and empathy that sometimes it's overwhelming, and I will scroll for hours through my phone looking at pictures of my children and just crying because I love them so much. And I love my husband too. I mean, but it's a very different type of love. And then one of the biggest driving factors to creating my business was to give myself something I wish I had and to help other moms. And that really comes from this place of love and empathy and deep understanding of what other working moms go through and how hard of a time that postpartum experience is in that season and how to make it better. And so it really feels like it comes from this place of sincere love for moms and motherhood and this connected experience we go through. So yeah, change, strength, and love.
So beautiful. Thank you, Alexa, and thank you everyone for listening to Look Both Ways. If Alexa's story resonated with you, share this episode, leave a review, and subscribe for more conversations about ambition, resilience, and motherhood. You can download Alexa's free self-advocacy script and get that special listener discount for her reentry blueprint workshop. Follow her journey along at executivemoms.com and follow her on LinkedIn for more, and can't wait to see that report come out in a couple weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Super fun. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.